coming up on this Hall of Fame edition of Wrestling Life.
During the stare down, I was in the corner, and I was marking out at that point. I really was.
Yeah.
Because just on the entrance with Hogan, when he came out, Canadian fans did not forget who Hulk Hogan was. They sure didn't. And so at the point, I never wanted to be in the middle because that was their moment of a stare down, their moment. Like, and me being in the middle of that shot, what would that do, man?
Welcome to the Wrestling Life Hall of Fame, celebrating the careers and accomplishments of legendary squared circle talents.
Welcome, my friends, to a very, very, very special edition of Wrestling Life, my first live Wrestling Life with Ben Veal interview. And what a fantastic location for it. We're here in the Savage Garden restaurant here in central London. Beautiful views of the London cityscape. And I'm here today with my guest, one of the greatest referees of all time. In my mind, he is the GOAT. He has refereed so many countless WrestleMania main events. He has been the third man in the ring for Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer. An incredible career over 35 years. And it is my pleasure today to induct him into the 2025 Wrestling Life Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, it is, of course, the one, the only, it's Mr. Mike Chioda. Mike,
Ben.
how are you, my friend?
I'm great, man. How are you? Thank you for having me on the Wrestling Life.
Absolute
I really
pleasure.
appreciate it.
What a spot to be in.
Man, what a lovely spot to be in, huh? It's just fantastic, phenomenal view and everything. It's just been coming to London, mate, for over 35 years, and it just keeps getting more beautiful and just more lovely to be in London, man. And it's great to be here in this interview with you today. And thank you so much for the inductee for the Hall of Fame. I really appreciate that, mate.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I mean, when I
beautiful plaque too, beautiful plaque.
Thank you. We don't spare any expense. When I kind of came up with the idea of doing the Hall of Fame for Wrestling Life,
yes,
I looked at kind of who I felt were unsung heroes of the industry. So people who I really felt hadn't, had that big moment. And I can't offer you the huge auditorium of people to speak to, but I do feel that, Mike, you sorely deserve that moment. I think referees are so integral to that in-ring storytelling product of wrestling. Yes. And obviously your job in many ways is to be invisible in some respects, but without you, none of that storytelling gets done. So I guess a really good starting point would be to maybe talk about that role of a referee in terms of actually what is your job out there and what makes a great referee?
Learning the way I grew up with Gorilla Monsoon's family and Joey Morella and getting into the business, and Joey, put me through the loops and everything as far as starting off the referee. Of course, Joey did, the Andre the Giant Hulk Hogan match when, Andre passed the torch to Hulk Hogan. He's done several matches. My first big match too, as far as, working with Joey was, Wembley Stadium in 1992, 82,000 people. I got to do a match there that night, but the best match of the night was what Joey did. It was British Bulldog and Bret the Hitman Hart. It was phenomenal. It was just 40,000 people were blowing their horns going, Hitman, 40,000. But to be a referee, you need to know so much. And, it's, your cadence of your counts. You need to be in there calling spots. And even back in the day when we did the old school things, old school ways, it's pretty much the same way today, even in 2025. You need to call spots. You need to make sure the wrestlers are okay in concussion protocol situations. In my years of doing television and being on USA for all the years and Monday Night Raws and SmackDowns, we had to be off in the air at 11:05, or 10:05. When you breach that time after 10:05, it cost the company a ton of money. The stress was going into commercial breaks, coming back out of commercial breaks. You'd have to cue the wrestlers on times for the match, times to go home, time to get their heat. And when it's time to go home and you had to hit those cues, it was stressful because I'd be in there screaming to the boys, let's go home. We got to go. We got 2 minutes.
And what's going on in your earpiece?
Oh, they're screaming at me, Gorilla. I'm screaming at the boys, But when when I was in situations with John Cena and so many guys like Rock and Hulk Hogan, and Bret the Hitman Hart in the 80s when Mr. Perfect and Rick Rudes and all the guys, you know, in different decades, in the 80s, the 90s, and the Attitude Era, working with Triple H and all the other guys, they were pros. So, you know, when you become a pro as a referee, it made your job a little bit easier working with a bunch of pros. But, you know, the refs, you have to be there for all your spots. You definitely have to be there for when you're taking a bump. If you're not in the right position, if you're not in the right situation, right position, you don't position yourself for that bump, the whole match could be screwed up. If you don't count the shoulders down, you don't count right, the false finishes have. A good referee, I always felt like when I counted the false finishes on the go-homes and all that, and make it real close, if you had those people, when I used to count a false finish, and you seen all those people in the front row, in the floor seats, in the first level, standing up because they thought it was the end of that match, that means the referee would do its job, you know? And I used to always talk to the boys, even going down the count. All right, get ready to kick. 1, 2, kick. And like, so you're on the same page, you know? Because a lot of wrestlers have their eyes closed when you're counting, the crowd's loud. So you always had to communicate. Communication is the key in being a ref in the wrestling business. And a referee should know when to be in the limelight of a shot, when not to be in the limelight of a shot. You know, Gorilla Monsoon and Pat Patterson always told me, which God bless both of them, Gorilla and Pat Patterson, you know, God bless them both, taught me a lot over the years. He always said, you know, the less the referee is noticed, the more you're doing your job. And there's times I used to come back and do these incredible matches, and I'd go, Pat, how did you like the match? And he'd go, oh, did you do that match? And I'd be like, yeah, Pat, I did that match. He'd be like, oh, then you did your job. I didn't even notice you.
Yeah,
I'm like, what? I'm like,
And I was saying that before we started recording. There's so many matches that I now watch back, and I'm like, oh man, Mike Chioda was the referee for that, because you really did blend in so seamlessly. And also, what I loved about you as a referee, you brought so much fire and passion. So when it was a moment for you to really push back, you were, you know, you and Earl Hebner, I think, were both equally brilliant at doing that. Those kind of moments when it was time for you to exert your authority on the talent. A match I've kind of got to kick straight in with is WrestleMania 18, because, you know, for me, there's this iconic shot that we've got of The Rock, Hulk Hogan, icon versus icon, and there's Mike Chioda in frame, but off to the side. Yeah. But you were the third man in the ring during, you know, what was, you know, that was the WrestleMania main event by then.
Take a look at this photo, right? This is a closer-up shot, and I was a little bit closer at that time. But during the stare down, I was in the corner, and I was marking out at that point. I really was. Yeah. Because just on the entrance with Hogan, when he came out, Canadian fans did not forget who Hulk Hogan was. They sure didn't. And so at the point, I never wanted to be in the middle, because that was their moment of a stare down, their moment. Like, and me being in the middle of that shot, what would that do, man? You know what I'm saying? It'd be like, you know, I'm in the way, you know? So nobody told me to be off at the side of that shot. Nobody told me to, you know, make sure you're off, because they didn't know the reaction of the people. Yet when Hogan walked out, you know, there's things that a referee shouldn't oversell either. You know, you can't oversell everything. A referee sees everything. We see clotheslines. We see backdrops every day. We see 50 million punches, right? You really shouldn't oversell just maybe like big spots. That's all. Because when when you're in the background and you're selling a punch and you're selling a kick, and you're selling you're putting too much attention to the referee, to yourself.
Yes. And
I remember Chief Jay Strombo when I was doing something in the ring, and I remember I come back to the ring, and I did some other stuff, and I'm high-fiving. It was a heel match. The heel won over with his tights, and I'm in the ring, and I'm letting the babyface put the heat on me instead of just getting out of the ring with the heel raising his hand. I come back, and Chief Jay Strombo goes, "What are you doing, Chioda?" He goes, "Are you going into business for yourself?" And I said, "No, sir. No, sir." Jack Lodge is sitting there reaming me out. And I said, "No, I'm not going." He goes, "Well, what was this? What was that?" I'm like, "Oh my God," you know. So, Chief Jay Strombo, he actually made me a referee too. With Gorilla Months, he made me a referee, and he checked with Gorilla, and he said, "Yeah, let's make him a referee." So I was a referee in ring crew. Tony Chim was the ring announcer in ring crew, and I did ring crew for 23 years. The last 12 years in my career, I just refereed, though. Learned a lot with a lot of old school men, you know, and you'd pick their brains, and they'd, and I never went to school for refereeing. I just learned on the road. I learned on the go with all the, doing so many house shows, live events. And, I started with the company in 85, started refereeing in 87, had to pay the dues as a referee, right? Yeah. Made my debut on television in 89. So, and it's been a fantastic run. And, this is one thing Gorilla Monsoon had said to me. He goes, longevity in this business is refereeing. You can have a good 5 or 10 year run or a few year run as a wrestler, but refereeing is
35 years. I mean, that's incredible, isn't it?
And that's what he told Joey, and unfortunately Joey passed away. And everything he's told me, it's always panned out. Yeah, all the wisdom and advice he gave me.
You are breathing rarefied air, really. Yeah. You, Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker, Ric Flair. There's a handful of people who have spanned and sting.
Right.
Very handful of talent.
Shawn Michaels,
have spanned for generations.
That's correct.
And just going back to that Hogan Rock match. I mean, did you have a sense before the match started the way it was going to go? Was it a moment where you're both in the ring and you're like, we've got to flip the roles now?
Man, it's just I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you, but I knew it wasn't going to be a high-flying match, right? So, when I got out there, I just knew I was doing icon that I grew up to in his business, like Hulk Hogan in 85 and on, take your vitamins and all you Hulkamaniacs. And I just loved Hulkster, a lot of charisma, didn't have many moves, but he just had it. He had what it took, and the music, I am the real American, fight for your right. It was just, so, and then, the Rock comes in, and he comes in with these Jerry curls, and his name is Rocky Maivia. And I think he had like $1 to his name when he came into the wrestling business, and Pat Patterson was a big inspiration to him too, as well. And I seen Rock just change and he just flipped the switch, And when the Rock flipped the switch, he just became this whole other character and everything, it was just, and he would cut his promo to me in TV locker room and everything. And I'd be like, oh my God, you're going to say that to these people? Like the kids and all that? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, wow, it should be awesome.
How does your relationship come about with The Rock? Because he was Chi-Chi. You were Chi-Chi to him, weren't you? I know that he really loved having you ref his matches. How does that relationship develop with you and him?
Man, it was great. I mean, because my nickname was Coyote, right? Got that tattooed on my back, right? I sat there and like Razor Ramon and Hulk Hogan and all these guys called me Coyotes. So, Chris Benoit, a whole bunch of the old school boys called me Coyote for many years. And then Rock comes along. And he's like, Coyote? He's like, nah. He goes, I like Chi-Chi. I'm like, you just can't change my nickname. He's like, you watch. Next thing you know, everybody's calling me Chi-Chi. I'm like, if Rock said something like, hey, your name is Chi-Chi, everybody was calling me Chi-Chi. I was like, all right, but I liked it. So, no, I didn't get a tattoo of that one on my back, though, mate.
Could still happen.
But, me and Rock had quite a relationship inside and outside the ring when we were working together. And it was phenomenal, And I had a lot of relationships in certain ways with a lot of the boys,
Who were you closest to when it came to kind of talent, but also the other officials and those in the back office?
Well, I mean, just it was more like a lot of the boys, but my relationship was real close with Tony Chimmel because we drove in trucks for 20-something years, and we drove all over the country in the United States. We went all over Canada within trucks, and we drove together. Me and him got the ring there every night. Never missed a shot, man. Never missed one ring crew shot. Unless it got canceled from snowstorms or bad weather or whatever. That was the only time, but we didn't cancel out. We always got the ring there every show. So I'd really have to say Tony Chimmel, who I was the closest to, mate, because I spent more of my time, with Tony on the road, and became good friends, and I still talk to Tony here and there. So it's great,
Am I right in saying that you were both released at the same time from WWE on the same day? So April 15th, 2020. I mean, we've talked about this because I lost my job in the UK
Wow.
on the same day.
Wow.
So crazy kind of
That is
similarity
crazy.
between the two of us
Yeah.
right at the start of the pandemic.
And look, here we are now in
Here we are
2025.
now, exactly, looking out on the Shard. And, you know, for me, it's been a huge opportunity for me to change my life and the trajectory of my career and also my work-life balance with my family.
Yes.
But of course, for you, you know, you've been with the company for over 30 years by that point. Right. You know, really, what the longest tenured referee, years, yeah. very, you know, long-serving, loyal employee, right. And then that round of cuts happens, and overnight you're let go. I know it's probably not very nice to relive it, but you know, looking back with hindsight now, how was that for you? Kind of getting your release and how it was all handled.
Yeah, I mean, like that was the first time ever I was fired from a job. I mean, I did work jobs since I was 13. Then when I got my proper paperwork at 16, you know, I worked at the Burlington Coat Factory, the original one in Burlington, New Jersey. Then I went there to a machine shop, you know, when I used to go to school and get out 12 o'clock. I was a machinist. And, you know, it was hard, you know, but the company, you know, the McMahon family gave me work for 35 years. Mm. They paid my bills for 35 years. And I appreciated that very much, you know. And Vince and Linda and Shane and Stephanie, you know, and all that. It's just been a great run for 3.5 decades. You know, I was just, during the pandemic where nobody could go out and get work at that time, you know, they only paid me for quite a few months of my salary, which was nice of them to do as well. But they do it for everybody. I was upset, of course, you know, no notice, no nothing. And like, oh, you're going to go out this way or you're going to go out this way. And there was kind of a plan at one point when I talked to Triple H. He's like, hey, you know, you don't want to be like this referee at 60 years old running around the ring. And I said, no, I don't. You know, I'd like to start training refs or doing something else in the company.
Producing, maybe?
Yeah, producer, or I'd more or less like maybe training the referees and helping the new wrestlers and the new talent coming in, working with the referees, because not only the referees know how to work with the talent, but the talent should know how to work around the referees as well. And I don't know if they teach that much in NXT now. You know, maybe they do, maybe they don't.
What do you mean by that? So what should a talent know to make the most of a referee?
A heel should know how to get heat and keep the heat on himself instead of getting the heat, putting the heat on the referee. When I used to work a babyface heel match and, you know, a singles match or a tag team match, you know, I used to go to one guy, okay, how would you like me to work around you guys in this situation? How do you want to do this? Or I'd go to the heels and say, okay, when you guys get your heat, where can I go and what I'll do this so I don't see anything. The more the referee sees the heels doing the heat spots, it just puts the heat on the referee. Yeah. You know, just keep the heat on the heels. I mean, you definitely don't want the heat put on the referees, right? Yeah. The heels should get all the heat. So there's so many different ways in so many matches to where you can protect the referee. And that's one thing I did learn, because the old school would always worried about protecting the referee and the referee not seeing the heat spots and so forth, or the objects or the gimmicks, you know, behind their backs. It's very important.
Who are some of your favorites to work with in the ring? Like, who do you feel like really got it and made the most of you as a referee? When I first started working, I would have to say like just a whole bunch of the talent, you know, whether it was the Godwins or, you know, the Rockers. I enjoyed, you know, like Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, working with them, and they would work with the Rougeaus or work with the British Bulldogs, and, you know, even a babyface match with the Bulldogs. But the Rougeaus had always good heat, and, you know, they were good heels. You know, I just seen Jacques. It was funny. It was great just seeing him in Manchester at the Love of Wrestling over the weekend. So the Mountie.
Yeah, the Mountie. I'm the Mountie. I love that gimmick too. That's a really cool gimmick. And there's just so many talents like Afa and Sinka, and so many old school wrestlers I've learned a lot from, you know. So, and I mean, you know, we worked with the Warriors, you know, the Road Warriors, and so much talent. You had the Powers of Pain, and there was just so many guys back in the day that you used to like to work with, and, you know, and yet you always, as a referee, you know, I listened to everything, you know, because if you didn't listen, you know, and you didn't take all it in, I would take so much in for so much different talent, you know, and you digest that, you digest a lot of that. And, you know, this guy, he works different because all the boys don't work the same. Yeah. All the wrestlers do not work the same, you know, so it was great to work with all that different talent back in the 80s and 90s and 2000 and all the way up to 2020.
This is what's incredible, like the names that you have shared a ring with. It's incredible to think that the same referee that was in there in the late 80s was also in there with Seth Rollins at the cash-in at WrestleMania 31. Like your career, and then some, like your career just spanned so much. There's obviously one very similarly long-serving WWE employee who we are seeing come to the end this year, and that's John Cena. Obviously, we are in the early days of the John Cena retirement tour, and you worked a lot of matches with John, including...
John Cena is a hard worker. He is a hard worker, and doing his matches, and I just remember I had so much fun, and there's not too much. I don't think I ever really screwed up any of his matches as well. I mean. He was always great to work with. He's fantastic. I love how the crowd just booed him. Even in Europe, they boo him when he come out. And the kids would go, "Let's go, Cena. Cena sucks." You hear all the deep voices, "Cena sucks." But then in the last 5-10 minutes on the go home and he's making his comeback, the crowd's going crazy. Cena's back over. It's like he grabbed every person that said he sucks. Now they were cheering for him on the go home, And I got to say, man, John Cena was a hard worker. There was times like, working in the 80s and the 90s and in 2000s, and you had Hogan, and then Hogan at WrestleMania 2002 passes the torch basically to The Rock, and then just a couple years later, Rock takes that torch and goes to Hollywood, right? And then Cena comes in some years later, and he picked up that torch, and then he ran it for 10 years, And I felt quite bad at some point where when The Rock and Cena, at the first time they met together, I did their match at WrestleMania, where Cena had to job out to The Rock. And it was like, damn, Cena's been running the torch for quite a while, but Rock's making this big, huge thing in Hollywood, and he's just been getting bigger and bigger, which he is so huge now. And then Cena had to job out to The Rock, and it was like, it's kind of like, oof. I had to leave a little bit of a, but then Cena got his paybacks next year, though, as well. But I didn't do that match, so.
Who in your mind is the torchbearer right now? Like, who do you see as the main guy in WWE?
Roman Reigns. I mean, I'd say Roman is their number one guy, I see a future where I've never worked with this gentleman, was Gunther. I see a future in him. I see a future in a couple other talent, but I have to say Roman Reigns is on top of the world. Cody Rhodes is really doing a hell of a job coming back over from AEW, and he's been really going through the roster now. He's champion. I'm glad to see where Cody Rhodes is at. He's deserved that for many years. He's in phenomenal shape. He's a phenomenal guy.
Well, talk to me about your relationship with Cody, because I know after you were let go by WWE, he played a really big role in you getting some work with AEW.
Yes.
So tell me about the relationship with Cody and how that came about.
Cody was just I've always had much respect for. I like Cody because he was a very young kid growing up, and he worked hard. He was trying to get to that level in WWE at the time. And he was kind of shadowing Randy Orton, because they were doing that thing, and he just never got his push in WWE,
Yeah, he was so good. You could see it in 2013, 2014. The promos he was cutting, dashing Cody Rhodes.
He just comes from 3 generations of family, royalty, so. And when I seen Cody, I was so proud of him, what he did in AEW, because I think, my honest opinion, even with Tony Khan's money, and I get it, I believe Cody helped tremendously getting so many of the boys a payday and a contract, because if it wasn't for them two putting it all together, the only place would be is the WWE, and it's kind of like you didn't want that. It was almost better when you had WCW and WWE, because you had negotiations, you had maybe a place to go somewhere, but when Vince took over everything and took over WCW as well, there was just one-stop shop, WWE. And I think Cody just opened that door up for so many talent in this industry. I think a lot of people owe him a thanks.
Yeah.
I really do, And then Cody tried to get me into AEW. He wanted me to train the referees. He was like, hey, do you want to work part-time or full-time? I'm like, I'll work full-time. I still got some tank in me, I still got some gas in that tank a little left in me. And it actually didn't pan out, though. But they wound up calling me back for one show or calling me back for this. And then actually they did a show in London, and I did get a call from Dean Malenko, but it just never panned out to do some big spot, you know. It's kind of weird, the questions too. It's like, well, did you ever work in London for? Well, yeah. Yeah, well, I worked in 1992 in London. That was my first biggest show I ever done, you know. And,
you reffed that incredible marathon match between John Cena and Shawn Michaels at the O2.
Oh man, I remember that. We were coming off I think it was like a 2-week tour, and I remember coming off, getting on the bus, and I'm like, oh, one more day of TV, right? And John goes, hey, Chioda, you ready for tonight? I'm like, because he gets all the words like the night before from all the writers and production, whatever. And I said, ready for what? He goes, we're all whooped and tired at the end of the tour. And he goes, we got an hour marathon here tonight. I'm like, what? I'm like, an hour marathon. But man, we rocked the house that night, you know. We rocked it, man. It was a hell of a match that night. I mean, to perform at Madison Square Garden as a referee for several years, like for 3.5 decades, right? To work the O2 Arena, to work Staples Arena in LA, to work all these venues around the world, Australia, Japan, the Tokyo Egg Dome, and just in South Africa, we did tours over there in 95, 96, and so on. It was just incredible. I mean, it's just incredible.
You've lived a wrestling life, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to 50 to 60 different countries, a lot of them over and over and all throughout. I haven't been everywhere around the world. There's a lot of countries out there. They're out there, but I've been to a lot of places. You know, I think what I've accomplished is awesome for myself. I have a lot of pride.
Absolutely, and you should. I mean, is it out of the realm of possibility that we could see you back in the Zebra Stripes one more for another match?
I would love to, you know, I'd love to whatever the match is called upon for me. If it's called upon, you know, I'd be ready.
You've always got that shirt ready.
Yeah, I always got that shirt ready.
I'm Marc Mero, former WWE Intercontinental Wrestling Champion and 3-time WCW World Television Champion. I am thrilled to announce the release of my new book, Bad to Good. The inspiring story of a wrestling wild man chronicles the highs and lows of my life, both in and out of the wrestling ring. It's a powerful narrative of overcoming adversity and the importance of perseverance, no matter how tough the journey gets. Co-authored with my good friend and award-winning journalist, Ben Veal, this is a story I've long wanted to share, and I truly hope it inspires you. I hold nothing back in this book, revealing the untold truths of my extraordinary life, from my modest beginnings and my first boxing match to the struggles with addiction that almost consumed me and my evolution into the charismatic Johnny B. Bad. This book offers an insider's perspective on the world of professional wrestling and my journey as a sports entertainer. You'll read about my pivotal negotiations with Vince McMahon that led to the first ever guaranteed contract in the WWF and how that decision marked me within the locker room. I discuss the impact of my relationship with my then wife, Rena, known to fans as Sable, on my career. I also confront the darkest moments of my life, how I hit rock bottom and how that experience sparked my rebirth, leading me to become America's leading motivational school speaker, inspiring young people and transforming lives. Featuring forwards by my good friends Diamond Dallas Page and Lex Luger, along with contributions from Mick Foley, Eric Bischoff, Vince Russo, and others who shared this wild journey with me. Bad to Good is a story you don't want to miss. Head to Amazon.com or WrestlingLife.online now to pick up your copy.
So it's been an amazing run. Of course, like you said, nobody wants to let go of a job, but I really didn't have tremendous heat towards the McMahon family at all. I mean, somebody could have stopped it, but you know what? If they said, "Hey, he's 35 years here,"
but you weren't the only one. There was a lot, and I think that probably. You were very long tenured, but there are a lot of big names that were let go at that same time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that I think when they're over the 30-year mark or 35 years over at the company, it's almost like, oof, you better hide somewhere because when they say, how long you been with the company? 15 years. Don't say 35.
Do you think, I mean, obviously you know him very well, you had a long relationship with him. Do you think we could ever see Vince McMahon back in a wrestling company? There's been talks that he might at some point do his own wrestling or entertainment company.
To me, Vince is one not to sit around. He's a workaholic, man. He's a workaholic, and he loves to work. So I mean, I could see him doing something. As a multimillionaire over the years, becoming a billionaire, he's been fantastic to me. Very respectful. I respect him so much, and I respect the family, Linda McMahon and Shane and Stephanie as well, for all the years working with them and for them. They're all workaholics. So I could see Vince doing something, I can't see him, because he had the opportunity, if he wanted to take trips all over the place. But where was he every week? At TVs, in the office, in TVs. And he was a man that didn't take holidays like you would think he would, but he was always cared about the business every week, in and out every week.
I've got to ask you about a couple of others, and there's so many matches I could choose from, Mike, but a couple that really spring to mind. So one is WrestleMania 19, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, obviously the infamous shooting star spot that goes so horribly wrong. Incredible to think we went into that match with Kurt with a broken neck, and the one that we were worried about at the end is the Beast, Brock Lesnar. Tell me about that night and that spot and what you're thinking as the third man and the referee when it goes so horribly wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's like from the WrestleMania, like 2002, real quick, I'll sum it up. The crowd went nuts for Hulk Hogan, right? I mean, they went nuts. And that wasn't going to be a high-flying match, like I said. It was icon against icon. Even just with the push-offs, the shoves-off, everything was crazy, right? With the noise, with only like 68,000 people, too, in a big dome in Toronto, Sky Dome. So, and then you go to these other WrestleManias, and you go to the Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar. You had two bulldogs in there, man. I mean, you got two strong athletes, really strong athletes. And they go at it tough as nails, man. And I'm telling you, both of them went in there banged up. And Kurt Angle was banged up with his neck. He had injuries as far as... And I remember going, when Brock got up top, and I remember him saying, I remember getting up, I was up in kind of far away, and always the referee's like, get it down. And I remember, I was like, hit that son of a bitch, Brock. Brock, hit it, Brock, hit it. And he, what an athlete. When you see him, he's done that shooting star. Yeah. But Kurt was a little far out. And the last thing you want to do in wrestling when you're laying there for ready to somebody to come off the top is you want to be like a fish out of water and start moving in. So it was really that Kurt was really far out and Brock had to hit it. And Brock nearly just made it, man. And I did see that. And I knew something was wrong, because his eyes were glazed and everything like that. But he fought through that match and finished the match. It was unbelievable,
And what's your role as a referee there? Because obviously that I assume that was the planned finish. Right. Feels like that was the last spot, not an F5. They have to call an audible, and he's clearly concussed, maybe not with it. They've still got to power through. What are you doing at that time to kind of get that to the finish?
We're just trying to get to the finish and get to the bottom of the finish and everything. And that's the way we used to do it in old school. He got through the finish, and somebody like Brock would be like, he ain't just going to say, I can't finish it, or Kurt Angle, I'm not going to finish the match. And that's what I was so used to for many years. Just making sure, like, we got through the finish, and then Brock had gone and got, the agents came out and everybody came out and then took him away in an ambulance, which Brock was really mad too. He was just,
Well, that's his moment, isn't it? That's his big WrestleMania moment, completely dashed, really.
Yeah, kind of, yes. So, I felt bad at that point, at the end of the match. I know we were in Seattle, it was a big dome there, and I know that was his moment. But, Brock's had a great career moving forward too, and then that's like going into the cash-in, at that moment there, with Brock. Well, what a match Brock had with Roman Reigns, man. I mean, I remember seeing Brock, Paulie's on the outside, and Brock's selling his ass off. I thought he was hurt at the moment too. He gashes himself at a post. He always used to gash himself the hard way or gash somebody else the hard way. Like I remember that night with Randy Orton. So, I mean, Brock's just an incredible athlete. And just going into that moment with that night, I thought he was hurt so many times or concussed, but he was just selling so good. And it just made that moment of that match so good. Brock and Roman, and then Seth Rollins, here he comes, and he catches that in. And that was another moment, So, I mean, You know, it's just working all these incredible different matches. You know, it's just everybody says, "What's your favorite match, Chioda?" And I'm like, I can't. You know, my favorite match, Rock and Hogan, of course, because of the big pop. But was it a technical match, wrestling match? You know, no. But it was icon. You know, it's really hard for me to say. You know, what's my top 5 or my top 10? You know,
there's one match which obviously always stands out, which is King of the Ring 2001, Kurt Angle and Shane McMahon.
Yeah,
is that the scariest match you've been a part of? Because that really felt like that went off the rails.
I didn't know if I was going to have a job on the way back, you know, because Vince is screaming in the background, Briscoe's screaming, everybody's screaming. Don't do it. Don't put him through the glass. Don't the glass. Yeah, end it. Like, don't let him throw through the glass, because he tried so many times. The glass wasn't breaking, and then finally just Kurt just like kind of throws him right through the glass. I'm not calling a match because me and Shane were close, and I used to do all Shane McMahon's matches. Love Shane to death, man. I just wouldn't call a match. I wouldn't stop it. You know, I know I was screaming in Kurt's ear. At the end of the night, you know, I mean, Shane had glass all in his head, everywhere, his face and everything. I didn't know if we were going through the wrong panel at the time, because, you know, certain panels are gimmicked and everything like that. I don't even know if it was the right glass we were using at that time.
So it didn't look like it?
No, it sure didn't look like it. So, you know, Vince kept screaming and screaming, and I just was not going to stop anything, that's for sure, because then it would make, you know, Shane would probably be mad at me. You know, I'm like, shit, if I'm going to get heat with Vince, or I'm going to get heat with Shane. I didn't want to heat with Shane and Kurt. So, you know, when I went out there, it was like, I know the office, what they want, whatever, but I work. It's not that I work for the boys, I work with the boys in the ring. So to me, it's like, when we're out there, let us do our thing. Let us accomplish what we need to get accomplished for the night or for the show.
So it's incredible, obviously, we're here in 2025. Raw is where it is now, available in 80% of the world.
Oh, yeah.
But you were there in the Manhattan Center, January 93, for the very first Raw. Right. Take me back to how the idea of Raw, what did you think Raw was when it first came about, this intimate venue in Manhattan?
And so I'm thinking, okay, well, we're doing this venue. We had to set the ring up in there too, right?
It's tiny, isn't it?
Tiny elevators, tiny this. We had 50 million, we had to make 50 million trips up this tiny little, to get all the pieces into the Manhattan Center, because it's a little theater, right? But it was such a cool little theater, because when that 1,200 or 1,300 people filled that up, maybe 1,500, it was so loud. And the way the theater was up like this, and you work, just an incredible. I thought, like, in working at the Garden, right? At that time, I'd already been working at the Garden, was a mecca. It's a mecca stadium for where Bruno Sammartino used to work, Cola Monsoon, Andre the Giant, Snuka, all these guys, the Piper, everybody used to work in the Garden. When we started this little, I was thinking, man, I mean, okay, we'll do a few shows in here, right? But then we started doing shows every week.
Yeah, but it was such a cool venue.
It was a great venue. It was a great venue. It was, you know, working, that little theater was just phenomenal, you know. I remember working like a theater like in Prince Albert Hall in England one time. It was really cool to do that, you know. And the Queen's Box was up there, you know. It was really cool. I mean, so working in Manhattan Center was just so cool. And, you know, I remember the one match I did with Razor Ramon and the 1, 2, 3 Kid. And I remember, you know, and, you know, the Click and them guys, all the Diesel and Razor and all the, you know, Sean and all those guys. But so, and I remember Razor going, I got a job out to the Kid. You gotta be kidding me, you know? And it's great because, like, before I started refereeing, I used to take robes all the time from Razor, you know, and he'd get his jacket and he'd get his chain and he'd go, hey, Coyote, sorry about this. He'd take that toothpick and he'd flick it in my face, and I'd be bing, you know, in my face. And I'd be like, oh, mate. And then I'm refereeing his matches a couple years later, which was awesome. So I remember he comes up and he's like, hey, Kyle, come here. I'm like, what's up, Raze? He's like, I want you to count to 3 as fast as you can, but don't make it too noticeable. And I'm like, huh? I'm like, he's like, you got me? And I was like, oh, yeah, I got you. Like, I don't want to be getting ribbed for the next 6 tours over in Europe or anywhere, you know, by the Click or him, you know. And I love Razor and Diesel and all them guys, you know. So I was like, sure, Ray. So I was like, I could speed it up. I'll show you, And I remember going, 1, 2, 3, like,
Like you're in on it almost. Yeah.
right. Oh, I was in on it a little bit because I didn't want to count slow either, Like they always say, keep your cadence the same, and I had a quick little cadence when I was younger, I got to admit. So, I did. I sped that count up for Razor, because, and he got the kid over, right? I mean, that match was like, and he turns into 1, 2, 3 kid all the way up to X-Pac, So, I'll never forget that match. It was a phenomenal match, man. It really was. That was just a phenomenal crowd, too, as well.
I've got to ask you about physicality in wrestling as well, because obviously as a referee, you do have to be very fit, great cardio, but also you have to be prepared for a bump every so often. And a bump that you took, the chair shot that you took at WrestleMania in the Austin Rock match.
17? Yeah, WrestleMania 17, right? Yeah.
How was that?
That was great because it was in Philadelphia. I mean, I remember Austin saying, hey kid, you're going to have to hold your hand up. And I'm like, nah, don't worry about that because, all these guys take crazy bumps, and the wrestlers, like, I know the WWF, WWE's paying my check, right? But the boys make our money, right? And you see the boys, what they do, to make our money because, referees, we comp tickets. We don't sell tickets, right? So we comp tickets. We're always comping tickets, whether it's family, friends, or anybody, So the boys sell tickets and they make our money working with them and for them, right? So, and I remember him telling me, hey, just put your hand up, bro. I said, no, just bring it, Steve, just bring it, brother. And he was like, you sure? He goes, I suggest you might want to put your hand up. I'm like, don't worry, it's Philadelphia. I grew up in South Jersey, 20 minutes away. I got to do what I got to do. I think it'll look stupid because I know it's coming. You know what I'm saying? It's supposed to be out of the blue, bang. That thing rang my bell for like 3 days.
Looked like it did.
Ooh. I mean, my ears were ringing for a couple of days, man. My neck was stiff for like a week or two, And Jim Ross, I come back and he bonuses me $2,500. And I appreciate it.
Danger money.
And his spot worked out great, and it was like going in from Rock and Austin in 17, right? And then Rock and Hogan in 2018. That was like 2 years back to back. Not only did the first 10 minutes of the 17 of WrestleMania 17, because then Pearl took over and, when I got knocked out. So it's like even worked with Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold. Stone Cold got his run then, with Mike Tyson as the enforcer. That was another phenomenal WrestleMania, So, in all the WrestleManias in certain ways. And then, I remember running into Mike Tyson, the night before during rehearsals. And he knew my name. Mike Tyson, he knew my name. He's like, I watch wrestling all the time. And I'm like, what? I'm like, you know my name? I'm like, bro, I watch you all the time,
That's awesome.
So, I mean, just watching a legend like when he was in his prime, Mike Tyson was phenomenal, and then he was the enforcer. And I remember, teaching him, hey, count 1, 2, 3. Boy, he counted just as fast as I did in the Razor Ramon 1, 2, 3 kid match. He was like, I was like, what the hell, With all those WrestleManias, like, working with Tyson and Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold and, the Boston Garden and all that. It's just, it's been a phenomenal career, man. Been one phenomenal career.
You were part of so many WrestleManias. Is there one WrestleMania that is your favorite above all others, Mike?
I can't really say there's just one best WrestleMania, to be honest with you, because it's just each one has its own different setting, time, everything. It's just different matches, different scenarios.
Just an incredible thing to be a part of every year.
Working with The Undertaker for so many years and all that, and working with all the talent that I have worked with in 3.5 decades of talent. I just really don't want to put one match over better than another one, or this one or that one. I'll tell you, the crowd was great that night, or this was great, but it's hard for me, to really. It's like you asking me, okay, who's the Mount Rushmore of wrestlers, right? I can't fit 8 guys in 4 spots. So it's kind of hard, So, but they're all phenomenal to me. They're all number one, I'd say, in certain different ways.
Is there any match that you're ever a part of where you felt like you had to cut it prematurely short because you're under pressure from time, that you just had to make it go home?
Well, there's not for time. We always hit the time cues. I mean, 99% of my cues would be spot on. whether I was cursing at the boys in the last 30 seconds. We gotta effing go. We gotta effing go. I remember one time Cena, at the Times, Cena goes, Chioda, tell him I got it. Don't worry about it. It's on me. And I went, okay. Okay. I said, okay, John. I said, you'll take the heat, right? And I don't know if it was like 50,000 per minute or something, or 50,000 once you go over that time frame from the show. But now it's different because they own Netflix and everything. They own their own network.
And I'm not sure that's a good thing. I'm not sure if it's a good thing that there isn't a time constraint, because actually those time constraints keep matches tight.
True.
They keep a schedule. When I start seeing a show and I see it's like 5 hours long,
Right.
I'm like, I get flashbacks to those WrestleManias. Like, oh, I haven't got 5 hours of wrestling in me straight.
Yeah, true. 5 hours of wrestling, right. When you're watching the brand, the SmackDown and the Raw shows, I'm kind of seeing maybe there's a little more time in there for matches. And I kind of like that, because when you have 20 minutes or 20-something minutes between two good talent, it's enough time to tell a story and build up a nice match, The times are very, important, but like now it's in Netflix, and I think actually them going to Netflix is going to be unbelievable. I can actually see they haven't done a big show in London, right? Many years, right?
Yeah.
I think WrestleMania is coming. It's got to be coming.
I hope so.
It's got to be coming.
I hope so. I hope we get a Royal Rumble, a WrestleMania, or a SummerSlam. I hope we get one of the big ones.
Yeah, let's get a WrestleMania.
Yeah, imagine this crowd. It'd be incredible.
Imagine it.
WrestleMania with Mike Chioda refereeing the main event. That's what I want to see.
Well, if they don't call me, maybe I'll do a run-in.
Absolutely.
Get the huge pop.
Much about run down the Wembley Stadium ramp.
Run down.
So it's interesting to say about Netflix as well, because I'd love to get your perspective on this. Like the referee, you went through different kind of variations of the referee outfit, as it were.
Right,
so obviously there's the classic, as depicted here in your action figure, the white shirt and bow tie. And then for many, many years you were synonymous with the zebra, the black and white stripe.
Right.
Now we've moved with this evolution into Netflix, into these dark kind of polo shirts, similar to what you're wearing now, which to me feels a bit like the referee is blending even more into the background. What do you think of like the new WWE outfits that they're wearing?
I kind of not feeling it, but that's me. I'm not feeling it. I didn't feel that this shirt with the bow tie either, right? So that shirt was so hard to keep clean. It was so hard to iron every night, Yeah, and then you had to deal with, at least I had hair there with the mullet, So I went through decades with hair and fading without hair, and then went to the black and white stripes. I love the black and white stripes. I like the old SmackDown black and white, black and blue stripes.
Yes.
I mean the black stripes with the blue shirts.
That's a good shirt.
But
and when I see you in that, the match I always think of, I know we talked about this when we last spoke, but the the Big Show being thrown by Brock Lesnar through the canvas and the whole ring falling apart, and you jumping about 10 feet away.
Yeah, like boom, 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 boom. Yeah, that was all I had to do in there. My job was to sell. So I had to give that dumbfounded look. I had to take the little bump like I was, the ring was collapsing and Michael Hayes was exploding. That's great. That's great. I just had to look around like with a dumb look like, oh my Lord, what just happened, right? Because it's never been done before too. So it was just like, once they took that suplex off the top, right? Off the rope there, out of the corner, they just sold. They were out like a light. And then I just sat there when I took the bump and I'm on my bum and I'm on my ass and I'm just like looking around like, oh my God. And you hear this holy shit chant, and the crowd was just going nuts. It was almost like a delayed reaction because they didn't know they were like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, exactly.
But it was great. I mean, I know they tried to perfect that the second time, but it kind of just.
Once you've seen it, you've seen it.
You've seen it. Once you do something like that, you can't replicate it. I mean, it can't be duplicated really. So it was hard to do it again and really come off like the first time. So between
Mick Foley and a Hell in a Cell, I mean, Shane McMahon jumping off the cage. I've got to ask you about that because WrestleMania 32, Shane and The Undertaker, that moment when Shane is at the top, and I'm sitting at home thinking, even Shane McMahon's not going to be this crazy. Yeah. And then he does it. What are you thinking? You're there at ringside,
I know Shane's crazy. He doesn't jump off anything. Yeah. So there's no fear in Shane.
What goes into that spot? Because that's such a high-risk spot. What goes into that in terms of planning?
Just it's some planning and it's some rehearsing. I know Mick Foley never rehearsed that spot though too, so he never did. Yeah, I mean it's just it's timing And it's just making sure, like, Shane's got to come off of that cage.
And the Undertaker needs to move.
Right. And you can't miss by a foot or two, or you have to hit it exactly. So, I mean, or it could be deadly. It could be definitely deadly, that's for sure, So, but Shane hit it perfectly, man. And he hit it perfectly. And it was just, and believe me, like when I'm looking at him up top and he comes down, it's just in like a second or two, with the velocity of his weight, body weight and everything. And he just comes flying down, man. I mean, the impact is incredible, and it looked like when I went to Shane, he had the wind taken out of him completely almost. It was just, I thought he had broken ribs and all that. And I'm sure he was banged up a lot, but if he was, he didn't tell me. He didn't sell it.
What was it like to work Ric Flair's last match? Because that's pretty special.
Yeah, it was special. Appreciated getting a call and stuff and doing his last match. And I was just hoping that Rick can make it. And, and Rick's, he's just got energy, man. Rick's got energy. He kind of blacked out twice that night. And I kind of gave him the 3 words each time. He says, when you think I'm in trouble, just repeat these 3 words, And so I did. And it is amazing. At his age, just, finishing off that match and finishing and getting the job done that night was amazing. So I was happy for him, man, in Nashville. Yeah, that was incredible.
I mean, if we get to see you in a ring again, and never say never in wrestling, is there a dream match for you, Mike Chioda, that you would love to referee? If you could have 2 people in WWE in their prime right now, who would you like to be in a ring with?
I don't want to put the matches. I mean, I kind of will. I kind of really can't lie. So, if Rock and Roman or anything ever came up like that, I'd love to be called upon or something like that. JJ, yeah, I'd love to get that call. I miss working with Roman. He's a great talent. And unfortunately, in the last 4 or 5 years since I've been released, I've seen him really just come up the level and come up the charts. But he was already there. I knew he was going to be somebody, when he came in with the crew and, and with Moxley and the other guys and Seth and stuff like that. And that was one thing, like, when you see tag teams back in the day, like, when you seen the British Bulldogs, right? The British Bulldog went off on his own, made it out of a tag team. Shawn Michaels made it more than Marty Jannetty did. Certain guys would go off to be a star. Bret Hart out of the Hart Foundation, right? And so forth. And I can go on and on. But when you've seen Seth Rollins and Mox and them, they all made it. They all
owned the business.
They owned the business, right? Yeah. I mean, with Mox going to AEW and Seth doing his thing in WWE and Roman where he's at. It was like that was amazing to me. Because I thought maybe 1 or 2 of these guys would come out of 3 maybe, but all 3 out of 3 made it. That was fantastic.
It's a testament to their talent.
They're all great guys, yeah. So,
well, look, my last question really for today, for this very special conversation we've had, and there's so much I could ask you. Yeah. But, obviously we're here with the Wrestling Life Hall of Fame plaque. Yeah. This is very much a celebration of your life in wrestling and all you achieved. Yeah. What are you proudest of achieving, Mike? Like, what stands out to you as like your, when you look back on all this big body of work, what are you proudest of? Man,
I'm proud I'm really proud and I appreciate the fans because I really never thought the fans would appreciate a referee like they do me. And,
Mike Chioda.
Oh yeah, right. That came from a European crowd in English in the European crowd after WrestleMania, right? That was amazing. And when they chant that, and it's just, I'm proud of to entertain all the countries and they haven't forgot. I did a signing in Manchester and for the love of wrestling. And you should have seen the queues. 200 people in the photo op line on Saturday, 200 people and they all...
You're over, kid.
They all just wanted, I was like, I actually walked up the first time and went, who's that line for? Who's that line for? And thought it was like Mick Foley or one of the other guys, which their lines are long. And they go, for you, mate. I said, you got to be kidding me. I mean, the people don't forget. And every one of those fans said nothing but kind words and loving words. So it was really nice, I'm proud to entertain the people around the world.
Well, we don't forget, and we're, on behalf of all of us wrestling fans out there, thank you for all of the memories that you've given us and the great moments.
Yes.
It's my pleasure to induct you into this Hall of Fame today. Very, very well deserved at the end, or maybe not even fully the end, of an incredible wrestling career, Mike. So thank you so much for joining me today.
And I want to appreciate you and Wrestling Life and you, Ben Veal. I appreciate the inductee very much. And a lot of love for England, man. And I'd love to maybe be back at WrestleMania in London.
One day. So thank you guys so much for joining Mike and I here today for Wrestling Life. You can check out all of our shows on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and all those wonderful places you get podcasts. Mike Chioda, one incredible guest. My privilege to induct him into the Hall of Fame today. So this has been Ben Veal. This has been Wrestling Life. Real talk from real talent. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you, Ben.